let's jump back into Matthew, and we're going to be in chapter 2. We're going to continue this story of where obviously the Messiah has been born. He's 2 years old, and now he's under threat. We watched last week the week before I think it was, or whenever, I can't remember where I'm at. We watched where the Magi had visited him. So now we're going to see the threat that he's under Herod. Now, what I'm going to pull out of this story is decision-making and the will of God, because obviously God's going to direct the young family to protect Messiah, but there's also an aspect in which Joseph and Mary are also going to have to discern what to do and take responsibility for their decisions. And so what you see in this text is a beautiful blend of how God leads and then expects us to follow that lead in responsibility as far as making other decisions. And what you find out on a personal level when you're trying to discern the will of God is God might give you a direction, but he doesn't fill in the script. He just says, go this way. And you're left with all these other things like, okay, so how long? How much? How am I going to pay for this? What are we going to do over there? Where am I going to live? All these other questions that he doesn't give. And you're left thinking, well, what am I supposed to do? What you're supposed to do is fill in the blanks with biblical wisdom. That's what starts to happen. And so a lot of our decision-making processes will be not so much God's giving every detail. He doesn't do that. He'll just give a direction. Go. Or do this. It's real simple. But then he leaves the responsibility to us, and that's where people get stuck on. They become paralyzed because they're too afraid to make a wrong move. They believe there's like a perfect dot that they have to land on, and if they don't, then they're off. And here's the thing, as long as you're staying within the moral will of God, God can override even a bad decision. As long as you're trying to do things with the right motive and the right moral prescriptions, God will course correct if you make a wrong move. But unfortunately, too many people sit there and they wait for every detail to come to them, and that's not how you are to respond to the will of God. You have to get the direction and then go. And it's kind of like, he moves a sailing ship. If you're still docked in the harbor and you're like, well, I got one direction, but I'm waiting for 20 more, good luck. You're not going to get that. That's not how he operates. And so we're going to delve into that, and that's what this actually story is going to show you. There's going to be wisdom on the fact of that Joseph's going to use. He's also on course with what God has told him, but it models to us how we should respond to the will of God. Because everybody in this room, like I've mentioned, we would want to be in the will of God. We don't want to be out of the will of God. We don't want to be on the wrong path. We want to be doing exactly what God wants us to do. So this is vital for everybody to understand, how do I figure out the will of God? So this passage kind of helps us. Okay, let's pick up on the passage in verse 11. So this is picking up with the Magi, obviously went there. I talked about this last time. So this is where we're picking up. And when they had come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and fell down and worshiped him. And we talked about this. The Magi know from Daniel and all the other corresponding passages, like the prophet of Balaam, that this is the God-man. This is the anointed one, and they come and worship him. We talked about that. Again, this is just a refresher. And so they're now going to present him their gifts. Now, everybody knows this from Christmas time. We always talk about, the gifts, but I want to unpack it, but I want to show you how this fits into the will of God for Joseph. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented gifts to him, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Okay, so what is Matthew doing? Because Matthew's a Jewish book, he's tying things back. He'll always make a reference back to the Old Testament. So what should trigger the Jewish mind when you see them presenting gold, frankincense, and myrrh is this is linked to the Queen of Sheba visiting Solomon and giving him gifts and gold, spices, And also, not just backwards, but pointing forward, that these gifts represent what the nations will do in the Messianic kingdom when they also bring their gold and their riches and every luxury item to the feet of the Messiah during the Messianic reign. So it's about history, but it's also a future indication of what the nations will do. And this is what's prophesied in Psalm 72 and Isaiah 60, and this is what the nations will do. So this is like the beginning of that. But when we look at these gifts, what you start realizing is these gifts have symbolic meaning from a biblical standpoint. Anytime you see gold in the scripture, whether it's in the tabernacle or the temple, gold is a reference to God being king, okay? And so the fact that they're giving him gold is showing you that this man, this boy at this age, is the king of Israel, but he's also king of the universe. And so gold is the fitting gift for that aspect of his nature. When you go to frankincense is what you would burn on the altar of incense, and along with other spices. And so frankincense represents sacrifice. Frankincense, that sacrifice to God. And so as you look at this gift, it is a reference to his deity. So you got gold to the humanity being king, but also that this individual is also deity because frankincense has been given to him. The last one is myrrh. Again, another rare commodity, but that myrrh would be used for embalming, for funerals and whatnot. And so they give him the expensive myrrh. Again, myrrh, what is it pointing to? It's pointing to death. It is pointing to sacrifice. So this king God, this God-man king, this Jewish king, is also going to make the sacrifice. And so you have all three gifts pointing out to the nature of who the Messiah is and also the work of the Messiah and what he will do by his death. And again, isn't that amazing? Because that's exactly what we say constitutes a Christian. You have to believe correctly in the person of the Messiah and the work of the Messiah in order to be saved. And so, you know, it's funny, on Wednesday, I was presenting something from N.T. Wright, and N.T. Wright has lost his bearings. He's gone off the path into apostasy, and he's a famous theologian from England. But he came out the other day and said, you don't have to believe in the bodily resurrection of the Messiah to be a Christian. And you're like, whoa, what? That's part of the gospel. We believe in the death, burial, and bodily resurrection of the Messiah. That's the work of the Messiah that you have to believe correctly. You can't claim to be a Christian if you deny his deity or deny his humanity or you deny his work. You can't claim to be a Christian. You can call yourself anything you want, but don't call yourself a Christian because there are theological standards you have to believe in order to be saved. And the person and work of Jesus is right there. So that's kind of the age we live in. A lot of apostasy, a lot of, believe anything you want. Well, I'm sorry, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. But even here in the gifting, it shows you the person and work of the Messiah is central to him and about salvation. Okay, so now here is God's intervention, okay, about his will. Then being divinely warned in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed for their own country another way. Now, if you recall, what they had said what Herod had said to them is like, tell me where the child is when you find him in Bethlehem, and I will also go and worship him. And you know that was a lie because Herod's a paranoid psychopath, and he wants to basically eliminate the child. And we talked about his paranoia. He killed his own wife, 3 of his sons. He was a psychopath. He thought everyone's after his throne. He was crazy. And so the wise men don't know this. Now, this is important about God's will. The wise men don't know this. So again, they're thinking, well, I'll go back and tell Herod. They have no concept that he's a psychopath. So this is where God intervenes. When you see the will of God in your life, he will intervene and do what you cannot do. Okay? They cannot discern Herod. And so they're going to walk into a trap. That's where God intervenes. He stops them because they don't have that knowledge. And that's important. The principle then is God will do what we cannot do. He does the impossible, like warning them. But God will not do what he expects us to do. Okay? That's how you discern the will of God. Okay? If he expects us to be responsible, then you got to go out and get it. So for instance, I'll give you an example. Let's say you're looking for a job. I need a job. Okay, I'm going to pray about it. And if you decide, you know what, I'm going to sit on the couch and watch daytime television all day, and hopefully, someone will come knocking on my door and say, hey, I got a perfect, ideal job for you. Here's what I want to do. And God told me. You think that's going to happen? No, it's not going to happen. Because God will not do what he expects you to do. So what you have to do is work in concert with that and say, okay, Lord, show me the place to go. And then you venture out and you put your resume out 100 different places. And then you see what God does with that. But you have to be active about it. You have to be in concert with that. And so that's important. Now, if a job lands your way and in your search, it's an ideal job and it's wonderful and this couldn't have happened, yeah, that's right. That's where God intervened. But he's not going to intervene if you're sitting on the couch waiting him to serve it up on a silver platter. It doesn't work that way. Okay, so now when they had departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. Again, another intervention, saying, arise, take the young child and his mother, flee to Egypt, and stay there until I bring you word. For Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. Now again, this is another intervention by God because Joseph and Mary do not know Herod's intent. Okay, so this is why God has to intervene. Again, what is Matthew doing? He's showing you a Moses typology. And again, it goes back to Egypt. What did the Pharaoh want to do to all the male children in Egypt? He wanted to do an infanticide, right? And kill all of them. And really, that's where you start seeing anti-Semitism like you do today. That's where it starts. It's the same mentality. Kill the Jews, right? And so what Matthew is trying to say is, just like Moses was taken and protected and put into a basket by his mother, so now this young family will take the Messiah and take him away to deliver him from an infanticide. So it's all going there. Okay, so what's this? So the principle then is, when necessary, God will provide divine guidance, okay? When it's necessary, but it's not the norm, okay? Most of our decisions, a lot of our decisions, are going to be brought about by wisdom and knowing the scriptures. But there are times where God will speak to you. There are times when he will use circumstances to get your attention. He will employ supernatural means, sometimes dreams, visions, angels, audible voices. A lot of people in the mission field, especially when there's no missionary or church or pastor or anything like that, they're getting dreams and visions, and God is waking them up to salvation if they desire it. And so God does speak supernaturally. We don't put God in a box, but it's rare. Please understand, it's very rare. Now, here's the thing. If God speaks to me, how do I know it's God? How do I know it's not in my own thoughts? How do I know it's not demonic? How would I know that? Well, there's several tests you have to go through, okay? So 1 John gives a first test. Beloved, do not believe every spirit. So there's the outset. If you think God is speaking to you supernaturally, impression on your heart, circumstances, or whatever, dream, I don't know. How do I know it's from God? What if a demon gave you a dream? Well, the first thing it says is, do not believe every spirit. So just don't willy-nilly give a blank check to anything you have, even if it's supernatural. Do not trust the supernatural, because demons can counterfeit, okay? But test the spirits, whether they are from God, okay? Because why? Many false prophets have gone into the world, but this you know, the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is of God. And every spirit that does not confess that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is not of God. And this is the spirit of Antichrist, which you have heard was coming and is now already at work. What is he trying to say? Here's the thing, the testing is this. If it's from God, it will affirm the person and work of the Messiah, okay? That Jesus has come in the flesh, the incarnation. That's just one aspect, but it's really theology. That anything you have will affirm and be in concert with the Word of God. Anything that comes from the demonic realm, it might be 90% true, but there will be a percentage of error in it, okay? And that error is what you're looking for. It's that 10% or 5% or 1%, whatever it is. And you're like, well, that sounds okay. It's about 95% in concert with this, but then it's that 5% I don't know. It's the 5% that's supposed to back you off and realize this is not coming from God. If it's coming from God, it's 100% correct in theology. Now, what does that presuppose? It presupposes that you know your theology. So the problem with so many people of why they're being deceived, they think they're getting revelation from God when it's actually demonic revelation, but they don't have the biblical understanding to know where the error is. And look, I've heard some really whacked out stuff in my time where, I mean, people have said that God has spoken to them to get a divorce from their spouse for no biblical reasons whatsoever, right? And that is a real obvious one. You would like, yeah, that's not from God. That's demonic or a pizza or something happened to you. That's not how God works. He's not going to tell you to divorce your spouse. But that's an obvious one. But some of them are a little bit more subtle. Some of them are a little bit more subtle to where it's you better know some multiple layers of theology involved in that. Right now, you know, I've been talking to a lot of you, and I was in Phoenix yesterday at a conference and talking to a lot of folks. A lot of folks are dealing with people who are being misled about Israel. And the other people they're dealing with is other Christians. Okay, I expect an unbeliever not to understand Israel and listen to TikTok and Instagram to get their information about Israel, which is nonsense, right? But this is why we have a percentage out there in our culture of women, white women, ages 18 to 34, that are completely supporting Hamas. And you think, what's going on with that demographic of 18 to 34 white females that are supporting Hamas and anti-Israel, anti-Semitic? You know why? That demographic gets its news from Instagram and TikTok and social media. They don't get it from traditional news sources. And that whole demographic is being led astray, thinking that Israel's committing genocide and doing all this nonsense, right? So I'm talking to people and in Phoenix yesterday, and they're saying, yeah, my sister says, you know, the Jews are committing genocide and that God is laying on their heart that what's happening in Israel is, in the Promised Land is Israel's fault. And they really believe God is telling them that. And they go, Brandon, what do I say? Well, to tell them that they're wrong. That's not what's going on. That's not the facts on the ground. That's not what's happening. But they're spiritualizing it, and something is being put in their ear, and they're listening to it and thinking that Israel's committing genocide. Well, I can tell you then, that's not God. That is demonic. But they don't have the discernment to know, is this from God or is this from a demon? Because you know why? Their Israelology is not where it needs to be as far as Scripture is concerned. That's the problem. So again, it all comes down to, a lot of times, our responsibility in discerning this. Now, Matthew 7 gives an interesting thing. Again, this is important to understand the will of God. Most people misunderstand this passage in Matthew chapter 7. They think it's a passage about discerning the works of other believers, of whether, and they will judge the believer on their works, whether they're saved or not. Guys, that is a total misread of Matthew 7. The context of Matthew 7, obviously the Sermon on the Mount, But look at the first phrase. Beware of false prophets. Okay? That's the context. It doesn't say, hey guys, this is how you judge a believer whether they're saved or not. It doesn't say that, but that's what the Calvinists will say. Okay. Who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. Okay, so take the metaphor of sheep's clothing. They look like a sheep. So you know what Messiah is trying to say is, you will not discern a false prophet by his good works or behavior, because their good works, their outward appearance, appears as if they are believers. They wear the wool, they have hooves, it's fake hooves, but it's, so what is Messiah saying? Don't judge the behavior, don't judge the outward appearance, because they're going to look like a sheep. So it's the opposite of what Calvinism says. So how do I discern a false prophet or a false teaching or a deceptive spirit in my life? You will know them by their fruits. Okay, so what do you mean, Jesus? I will know them by their fruits. What are the fruits? If I can't judge the behavior because they look like a sheep, then what is it? He explains, do men gather grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Even so, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. And a good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a bad tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down, thrown into fire. Therefore, by their fruits you will know them. Okay, so if I can't look at the behavior, then what is he talking about? He's saying the fruit of a false prophet is what they teach theologically. That's how you know they're wolves in sheep's clothing, is they won't teach proper theology. Who is he talking about in the passage? The Pharisees, the religious leaders, is who he's referring to. That's the context. So, in order to test the Spirit, I must know my theology, because that's how I'll discern the fruit of a demon, the fruit of a false teacher, the fruit of a false prophet is what they teach. And typically, a general principle is this: they will deny the faith. They always deny some aspect of theology, whether that's the person of Messiah, the work of the Messiah, or something to that extent. That's how you tell whether I'm getting a message from God. So here's what happens. People will be sitting there, and someone will come to them, especially in the charismatic arena. Hey, God gave me a word to say to you. Tomorrow, quit your job. Sell your house, move to Oregon, or something like that. Some crazy thing like that. And you're like, what? Huh? God I was at the donut shop, and he told me, tell Brandon to go do that. And that happens all the time to people, especially in charismatic wings of Christianity. And the people like, well, I don't know. Is that what I'm supposed to do? Time out. Hold on. How do you know that person is not being demonically influenced? Can a Christian be demonically influenced? Absolutely. Peter said to Jesus, you're not going to the cross. And what did Jesus tell him? Get behind me, Satan. What was happening? Peter was being influenced by Satan. And again, the thoughts going through his head from Satan, and he's speaking for Satan. So you can't say that a Christian cannot be influenced by demonic. They can. Peter was. So it can happen to all of us. So that's why everyone has to have their antennas up. That's why you have to know the will of God, because you can be led astray by even other Christians. They might be well-intentioned, but the thought that came in their head is not from God, but came from a demon. Can demons communicate thought for thought? Absolutely they can. That's how they work. They communicate thoughts, and they put thoughts in your head. That's how you know. So anyway, if, say, someone came to you and said, hey, Brandon, God told me that you need to move to Portland, Oregon. What? Well, you're like, well, there's no theology behind that. There is, but I'll show you later on. It's not denying the deity of Christ, not denying the work, not denying the Trinity. What do I do with that? Well, then, if you're unsure, go talk to somebody that has spiritual maturity. Look what the Proverbs say. Without counsel, plans go awry, but in the multitude of counselors, they are established. Where there is no counsel, the people fall, but in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. Plans are established by counsel. By wise counsel, wage war. For by wise counsel you will wage your own war, and in a multitude of counselors there is safety. What's the overwhelming thing it's trying to tell you? If you're not sure, go talk to multiple people that have spiritual maturity to say, hey man, am I seeing this right? But here's the thing, most people won't do this. They stay in the echo chamber of their home and they don't talk to anybody. And then the only person they're talking to is their spouse. And here's the problem. Our spouses are too close to us. We're too close to the issue. And we got an echo chamber going on in our home. You have to go outside and talk to spiritually mature people and say, hey, are we seeing this right? And they might say, yeah, I can totally see that. Or they're going to say, that's crazy. What about this, and this, and this? And that's where you start balancing yourself out. But you have to have contact with the body of Christ. You can't do Christianity alone because of these passages. It's important, very important, right? Okay. So when he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed for Egypt. Now again, what is Matthew doing? Connecting it back. And this is the patriarchal descents into Egypt. If you remember studying the life of Abraham and Jacob and Joseph and the 12 sons of Israel, what did they all do? They all made a trek into Egypt, didn't they? To protect themselves from famines. In this case, it's a psychopathic maniac. Okay, but again, it's a same pattern that Matthew is trying to show. So now Jesus is going into Egypt. Okay, so the trek is about maybe 75 miles. You can see the little line that you would take from Bethlehem all the way down into Egypt. Okay, it's a pretty long trek. Maybe it took them a week or 2 weeks to get down there. But here's what I want you to see. God says, go into Egypt until I give you word to come back. Well, that's not a lot to go on. When do I leave? Well, here's the thing. When you get a command from God and you're clear on the command, it means spiritual expediency. What do you mean? Do it now. Don't delay. When he gives a command and it's clear, do it right now. Employ it immediately. He doesn't want you sitting there and waiting. Well, I don't know how long I'm supposed to stay, Lord, until you tell me how long I'm supposed to stay. I'm sorry, you're not getting that information, Joseph. You will stay down there until I tell you to come back. A month, a year, 2 years, 3, how long? I don't know, Joseph, but if I tell you to stand on your head and whistle Dixie, you do it. Notice how God doesn't fill in the script. What do we take with us? I don't know, Joseph, figure it out. How are we going to pay for our stay there? It costs money to travel these days, high prices, the eggs prices are still high, God. How am I going to travel? I don't know, Joseph, figure it out. But I think you need to use some wisdom, Joseph, because you just got visited by three magi, or not three magi, but they gave you 3 gifts. Maybe you should use the gold, frankincense, and myrrh to pay for your trip. How am I going to provide? Well, they gave you a king's gift. That money will probably last you a long time in Egypt. Where am I going to live in Egypt? Because you just told us to go to a country. But there's a lot of places to live in Egypt. What would you do? How would you determine if God said, I need you to leave Bakersfield and go to France? What part of France? Okay, use wisdom. He's expecting Joseph to use wisdom. So let me give you a little context about Egypt. There was a significant population of Jewish people in Egypt at this time. A very significant, probably upwards to 1 million Jews living in Egypt at this time. And many of them lived in the city of Alexandria. Why? Because that place was marked out by Alexander the Great, and Alexander the Great was pro-Israel. And he made that city, and he named it after him, but many Jews went there as a safe space to go to when things got heated up in Israel. And Philo was there, and so a lot of Jewish settlement was right there in Alexandria, Egypt. So, you knowing that, where would you go if you're looking for a safe space in Egypt? I'm going to Alexandria because I know there's over 1 million Jews there. I'm not going to go down the Nile. I'm not going to live in Thebes. I'm not going to live in Ramses. I'm not going to live in those places because I'm going to go where my fellows are. And so I'm going to go to Alexandria. So we probably think they went to Alexandria because that's where over 1 million Jews were there, including Philo. So that's where probably Jesus was for 2 years, probably. But again, it doesn't say, but again, if you were called to make that decision, we would hope that we would make the same decision of like, hey, I'm not going to Timbuktu. I'm going to go to where there's a spiritual family there, to where I can be in a network of believers or like-minded people. So to me, going to Portland, Oregon is going into the lion's den. Portland, Oregon ain't going to work for me and my family. I don't know about you, maybe you want to live in Portland, Oregon, that crazy Antifa place. But I wouldn't. I would probably pick, if he told me to go to this state, I'm going to find that state, and I'm going to find out where healthy, born-again, remnant believers are, and I'm going to find a good church that has the same mindset as I do, and I'm going to incorporate around them. That's where I'm going to move my family. But I'm not moving my family to Timbuktu, out in the middle of nowhere, where I have no familial or spiritual support. That's the wrong move. And let me tell you something. We're all tempted to leave this crazy state. No doubt about it. It's getting crazier, and I'm going to show you in just a little bit about what's going on in LA. It's dystopia. I get it. But if you say, okay, I believe the Lord's getting me out of California. Great, that's fine. But where are you going? Well, I'm going to Timbuktu. What do you got in Timbuktu? Do you have a church? No. Do you have a spiritual community? No. Do you have like-minded people? No. I'm going to Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas is as liberal as California. You don't go there. Well, I'm going to Seattle. I like fish and chips. It's dead in Seattle. It's a deader in a doornail. Been there, done that. Wouldn't want to get the t-shirt. No. So you see, when you're making the decisions for the will of God, you have to incorporate these other forms of wisdom and just not be stupid about it. So I guarantee you, Joseph's thinking, where's the safest place I can take this child? It's probably Alexandria, around 1 million Jews that are encompassing around me, and they'll help us. Makes sense, right? That would be this thing. So that's what we're talking about. God will give you direction, but he doesn't give you a script. He expects you to fill it in. So that's what we're talking about. And what's coming out of this? God does not want puppets. He's not going to tell you, now move here. Okay, now move here. Okay, now move this way. Okay, you're a robot at that point. He's not going to do that. And plus, there's no faith in that. You've got to trust them. Do you trust him? Now, here's the thing. If I'm acting morally within the will of God and I'm going on that one directive, go here. Okay. If I'm acting morally and I have the right motives, do you trust that God can course correct if you miss something? You have to. Okay, if you're trying to do the will of God, and even if you make a wrong decision, yes, of course, he can course correct. You have to trust that. But a lot of people don't trust that he will course correct for them. They say, oh my goodness, I'm gonna get out here and I'm gonna get it jammed up, and I'm going to be hanging in the wind, and I'm going to be left abandoned by God. No, that's the wrong thought. You will be out in the wind if you're doing something immoral, okay? If I'm going out because I'm going to Portland, Oregon to rob banks, Good luck. You're going to be on your own on that one because you're not staying within the moral framework of God. But if you stay within the moral framework and you're doing your best, he will course correct. That's how he works. You have to trust him to course correct. Okay, so the principle is this. He gives a command but not a roadmap. He expects wisdom and responsibility from us in knowing the will of God. So again, like I'm saying, you don't have to agonize that I have to be in this perfect will of God and figure all the details out. It doesn't work for that. That's not the way it is. Go with what you know and then use wisdom. That's how you understand it. And they were there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled, which is spoken through the Lord, through the prophet, saying, out of Egypt I called my son. So this is a typology. So they finally get called back. And it fits the biblical motif of Israel. Israel was called out of Egypt, and now the Son of God is being called out of Egypt. What is this? This is in Hebrew, this is a remez. And what a remez is, it's a literal plus typical. So this is a typology. Israel being called out, now Jesus is being called out. So Jesus is the fulfillment of the typology. He embodies Israel. He is the new servant. The corporate servant failed. Now the singular servant, the Messiah, is doing their job and will make it right. And so that's what Matthew is trying to show you. That's a little bit of the Hebrew. Anyway, again, not responsible to find every minute detail. That's not your job. And he's not going to show you every minute detail. Okay? That's the problem. But here's what you have to understand about this course correction that I was talking about. If you look back in your life and you see how God orchestrated things in your life, and this is what we call hindsight's being 20/20, right? What should you see? You should see that despite you not knowing every detail about God's will, that somehow he accomplished his will to get you to this point. So you never see providence going forward. You're not going to see how it all plays out. It doesn't work that way. You're going to be blinded, and it's going to be a mystery to you. Like, well, what's next? I don't know. Just take one step. But when you turn around, you see what he's done in your life, and you can see how he lined everything up that you didn't know, and how he protected you and did this and did that. So what is that supposed to do? The history with God in his providence should give you the ability to trust him more going forward. History creates the foundation for trust, to trust him for the unknown. Because I can attest, everybody in this room can attest, hey man, yeah, there was things happening in my life I had no control of, but it got me to the place I needed to be. That was God's hand. Everybody can see that. Everybody can say that. Good, that's where you draw your faith from going forward. So here's the question, can you trust God? Absolutely. He's got me to this point. I can see it, yeah, absolutely. And look at this. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God and those who are called according to his purpose. So here's the thing. If you love God and not trying to disobey him, and if you're following his call on your life to do what he's called you to do, all things will work together for good. You have to trust that. Even though you might go through different alleys and fearful times and different things, he will make sure it's good if you're doing those things. Okay, now we go to the psychopath. This is what God's trying to get them away from, and that's how he's intervening. Then Herod, when he saw that he was deceived by the wise men, was exceedingly angry, and he sent forth and put to death all the male children who were in Bethlehem and in all its districts, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had determined from the wise men. So this is infanticide, okay? And what is this? It's a typology. It's a typology of what Pharaoh did. Pharaoh did the same thing, infanticide, right? So now Herod's doing the same thing to the children of Bethlehem and trying to kill the Messiah. So again, it's the Moses Exodus theme that's working all through this, and because Jesus is the prophet that Moses talked about that was coming. So that's what's happening. Okay. But again, just to remind ourselves about Herod, he is a classic psychopath. Classic, no doubt about it. He fits all the descriptions. And like Augustus, even Augustus Caesar, during the days of Herod, said, I would rather be Herod's pig than Herod's son. Because everybody knew he had killed his own sons doing this, right? He's crazy. But let me mark out the hallmark of a psychopath. The hallmark of a psychopath is at the end, they think murder is the answer. Okay? They have no problems saying, you know what? I'll just kill him. That's how psychopaths think. Now, what's the population generally speaking? The population, generally speaking, in any given society is about 3 to 4% of its population are psychopaths. Okay? The prisons are higher. There's about 15% of prisoners that are psychopaths. Well, that makes sense. Okay, so then why am I seeing so much psychopathic behavior if only 3 to 4% of the population are psychopaths? Because of the media and social media that is saying that psychopathic behavior is normal. And that's why you're seeing it so much, right? Now, in this psychopath, here's the interesting thing. Typically, what you see accompanying psychopaths is a demonic element to it, using that against other people. Let me show you the demonic element or the satanic element behind Herod. Now, this is Revelation 12 talking about this situation historically. Now, a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars. So that's a reference to Israel, okay? It's Joseph's dream. Then being with child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. So it's talking about Israel producing the Messiah. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a fiery red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 diadems on his head. I wonder who that could be. That's the beast system in the future, but it's a reference to Satan. His tail drew 1/3 of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. That could be a reference to the fall of the fallen angels when they rebelled against God. And the dragon, who's the dragon? Satan, stood before the woman who was ready to give birth to devour her child as soon as it was born. Now, wait a second. So what John the Revelator is telling you the power that was behind the psychopath Herod. And who was behind it? Satan. Satan was wanting to kill the child when Messiah was born. And what John is showing you is the behind-the-scenes look behind the psychopath. No doubt, Herod is responsible for being a psychopath, but when you're a psychopath, that means you're mentally ill. And sometimes Satan will use mentally ill people, psychopaths, and use them to accomplish his purposes. And right here is a perfect example of that. It was Satan who inspired the psychopath to kill children in Bethlehem. Now, when you look at that, and you're like, okay, that totally makes sense, because you look at Hitler, he was a psychopath. Mussolini, psychopath. All of them, they were psychopaths. And what did they do? Kill, 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 right? So psychopaths, and this is important for all of us, because this is going on. I did a whole prophecy update about psychopathology. Their intent is to get power, because there's no moral framework in a psychopath. It's to get power and then use that power to get their way. And if it means killing, they will do it. So psychopaths typically have a personality disorder. In fact, they all do. They're antisocial behavior. They lack empathy. Murder's an option. They lie like there's no tomorrow. That's their native language. They're manipulative. They have a grandiose idea of self-worth, like Herod. They lack any guilt, but they're very, very charming. Psychopaths are very, very charming. Okay? So we know Hamas are psychopaths. We know the Ayatollah Khomeini is a psychopath. He fits all the thing. And what is it? Death to Israel, death to America. They chant this all the time. That's an easy one to pick. But now we're seeing psychopaths all through our culture. So this psychopath burns Jews. He couldn't be armed. So what does he do? He goes on the internet, on YouTube, figures out how to make Molotov cocktails, and he burns 8 people. In fact, he burned a Holocaust survivor. And then people reported like their flesh was melted on their legs and stuff. This is what this psychopath did. And what was he's Islamic. He's illegal, by the way, another illegal doing crimes, burning Jews. Yeah, that's what we got going on in the country. You know about this Messianic Jewish couple? They got killed by a psychopath. This psychopath right here, Elias Rodriguez, woke, Black Lives Matter, admired Luigi Mangione, who killed the CEO of the healthcare. Do you understand that this couple got killed and the guy who killed them didn't even know what they were trying to do? They were trying to show support to the Palestinians. Did you know that? And he killed them. He killed them. These are Messianic believers right here. Unbelievable, right? And this psychopath obviously is arrested, but that's what I'm talking about. The culture is everywhere. Here's him shouting. I showed this on the Wednesday night, I think, but listen to him after he cold-blooded killed people.
Die! No. Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
So do you think this guy knows anything about the Middle East? No, he doesn't have any idea, but he's psychopathic in his behavior. Again, another guy, Colorado man, posted death to America, tried to firebomb the U.S. Embassy, psychopathic. Carmelo Anthony stabbed Austin Metcalf in the heart. What? Excuse me? You get into a little tiff at a track meet or whatever it was, and you stab a guy in the heart? That's your answer? It's psychopathic behavior. Luigi Mangione accused of murdering Brian Thompson, and he did, the CEO of United Healthcare, psychopathic. Listen to Taylor Lorenz talking about the idea of killing Trump.
All across the internet, thousands and thousands of people are making the same plea.
Yo, can somebody just do it? Can somebody, anybody, just do it?
Somebody's got to do it. There has to be somebody out there that is willing to do it.
Who's going to take the initiative to do it? We all know it needs to be done, and somebody needs to do it.
If someone does it before the summertime, it's going to be like that one summer when everyone was playing Pokemon Go and everyone was a friend.
Gotta do it.
When did that become normalized in our society to where you say, yeah, we just, instead of voting for someone or whatever, we just need to take them out? That's psychopathic, guys. I don't know if you guys saw this, but this was in Seattle. These Christians don't mess with our kids. Antifa goes in there and goes crazy on them. This is going on a Christian group, and he's just nuts. It got out. What happened here? Hold on. Yikes! Come on back.
Tensions reached a boiling point at Cal Anderson Park when what started as a counter-protest quickly escalated, leading to multiple arrests and clashes with police. Police say objects were thrown at both May Day rally-goers and officers. The protest was in response to a rally, May Day USA, which was organized by On Fire Ministries, a religious pro-life group that promotes a two-gender ideology. Critics call the group's message anti-LGBTQ+ and anti-trans.
So, you know the backstory on this? I think I've showed you this before, but I want to just briefly touch on that. That Christian group wanted other sites, okay? But the city said no to the request for other sites and put them in this park on purpose. You know why? That park is a hotbed surrounded by the LGBT community. So you tell me what city officials were thinking, saying, yeah, let's put a Christian group in an LGBT-surrounded park, when the Christian group didn't want to go there. They wanted to go to other places. And their whole mantra was, protect our children. It wasn't coming bashing LGBT people. It was quit grooming our children in schools. That's what the whole movement is about. But the city decided to put them in an LGBT park and then all of a sudden, Antifa shows up and does that. What do you think was behind that? Do the math. So this guy, this woke mayor comes out and he says, Seattle is proud of our reputation as a welcoming, inclusive city of LGBT communities. We stand for our trans neighbors when they face bigotry and injustice. It's your department that put them in there. Today's far right, not Christian, but far right rally was held here for this very reason, to provoke a reaction. I'm sorry. You denied them going to other parks. That's what the story, you guys put them in the heart of an LGBT community. What did you think was going to happen? You guys were provoking them, not the Christians. But again, it's psychopathic behavior. I want to provoke so people can get killed. That's why Antifa was called in. So now FBI is investigating the mayor for putting them in this situation, and I hope the FBI goes after him. Okay, so let me show you LA real quick. Psychopathic behavior. Dude, I'm like, I don't ever want to go to LA anymore after what's going on there, okay? So ICE is going in there, taking illegal aliens out of LA, just like ICE is doing that through the entire country. 45 arrested in ICE raids. But the problem is the people of LA are protesting federal troopers, ICE, Border Patrol, and even the LAPD. So here's the scenes in LA just the last few days. This is ICE and Border Patrol. They can't get through the communities because the people of LA and these areas are protecting illegal aliens. These are federal employees. These are federal agents. That's a federal crime to stop an ICE agent, to stop a Border Patrol, or anything, any law enforcement. They can't get through there, and they actually get entrapped in one of the federal buildings, and LAPD had to come in and break up the crowds. This is LA. It looks like it's like the Middle East. It looks like, it's unbelievable what I'm seeing here. They're stopping the federal agents. Everybody wants to film. What do you think they're going to do with their film? It's all, they just always pull up their phones. Why is that?
The fascist regime known as the Third Reich. Your leader is
Where are we at when federal agents can't do their job? Watch this guy on the right-hand side. These are Border Patrol, federal agents, and undermarked cars. And watch what this guy in this helmet is doing. Throwing rocks at federal agents. Now, they're on a manhunt right now for these rock throwers because they're throwing rocks at federal agents. That's a federal crime. It's unbelievable. Here's what happened in LA. They took all these illegal aliens and they had to go into the federal building for safe harbor, and then the crowd swarmed the federal building and they can't leave. So the LAPD had to go in there and break up this crowd. vandalizing federal buildings. What a moron. So LAPD had to come in and disperse the crowds. So trapping federal employees in a federal building in LA. So the building there is the federal building that they're in. I don't ever want to go to LA anymore. I just don't want to go. There's too many psychopaths running around, or at least psychopathic behavior, thinking that we're going to stop federal agents from doing their job. I hope a lot of these people go to jail. It's a federal crime to stop ICE or Border Patrol or anyone else, and then the LAPD having to come in there. It just went nuts. It went nuts. What is happening? It's the psychopathic behavior. They think this is acceptable. We saw this with Antifa. We saw that with Black Lives Matter. It's going off the rails anarchy is what it is. That's what it is. And again, so when you look at a guy like Herod and you think, well, that happened in Bible times. No. It's happening on a societal level now. We have resorted to death is the answer. We'll throw rocks at federal cars. That's what we'll do. It reminds me of like Hamas. It's a bad place. It's a bad place to be, guys. It's a bad place to be as Americans. Then was fulfilled what was spoken to the prophet, spoken by Jeremiah the prophet, saying, a voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation, weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, refusing to be comforted because they are no more. So Matthew relates this to the Babylonian exile, and again, it's a metaphor of Rachel being in Bethlehem. She was buried in Bethlehem, and she metaphorically weeping for her children when they got taken in the Babylonian exile, and now she's weeping again for her children that were killed by the psychopathic Herod. So this is what we call in Hebrew a drash, a literal plus application. This literally happened back then at the Babylonian exile, and now a similar thing is happening again. That's how you understand how Matthew's interpreting that. Now, when Herod was dead, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, arise, take the young child and his mother, go to the land of Israel, for those who sought the young child's life are dead. So this, again, is a Moses typology. Moses, go back into Egypt. Those who sought your life are now dead. Total Moses thing. Then he arose, took the young child and his mother, and came into the land of Egypt. Okay, so land of Israel. So what's going on? It's time. Now go back. But here's the thing. Go back where in Israel? Do you want us to go back into Bethlehem? Where do you want us to settle? Go back to the land of Israel. Joseph, figure it out. Well, that's, again, I'm not giving you the whole script. Okay. So here's the script I want to give you. Knowing what Joseph knows. Herod is dead. That's clear. But the territory that Herod controlled in Judea, where Bethlehem is governed by his nut job son, Archelaus. And Archelaus is another psychopath. So you tell me, go back to the land of Israel. Well, I know Archelaus is a psychopath. You think Bethlehem's a good option? I ain't going to Bethlehem, would you? I'm steering away from Archelaus' territory. I'm going to go to another of Herod's sons, Antipas, who rules, and he is pretty calm. He is not some crazy governor like Gavin Newsom. So I'm probably going to settle in Florida with a governor I kind of get along with that keeps the peace. Not like we see in LA. I'm not going to move to LA because Karen Bass runs that place. I'm going to go to Florida. So what does Joseph do in his thinking? We're going to go up to the Galilee region because that's where Antipas rules, and he's pretty calm. He's not a psychopath like Archelaus. So guess what? But when he had heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea instead of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. That's right. We're not moving to San Francisco. That's right. And being warned by God in a dream, he turned aside into the region of Galilee. That's where Herod Antipas is. And he came and dwelt in the city called Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophet, he shall be called a Nazarene. So tell me this. Would you rather live in a cosmopolitan area like San Francisco or LA or Houston or Atlanta or New York or Boston or any of those places? Or would you rather live in the country, in a rural setting? Maybe everybody has the connotation that they're all rednecks, and it's in the middle of nowhere, country bumpkin, life is pretty slow, it's pretty easy, everyone knows each other because you're going to a small town, you're not going to be in the hustle bustle of New York. Where would you rather settle and raise the Messiah? That's easy, isn't it? I'm going to go to the most obscure place I can possibly find to raise the most important individual on the planet. It makes total sense. It's Joseph using wisdom. If I need to hide this child until his time is ready. So I'm going to go to the country bumpkin area. I'm going to go across the tracks to nowhere land and have the safety of raising this child in that area. It would be dangerous to take him into Jerusalem. Totally dangerous. Archelaus will kill him. He's another psychopath. You see what's going on here. And I went too far, too long. But here's the thing. We got to end here. It is a cooperation with God's will and human wisdom, as far as biblical wisdom is concerned, employing that of how to orchestrate this whole thing. That's what you have to do in your life. That's what you have to think about. He's not going to give you a script. He's going to say, go here and fill in the rest with wisdom and counsel and biblical truth. And if that's the way it is, the way you want to think about it is put your anchor in the boat and set sail. What you cannot control in the boat is the wind. That's God. God is blowing, and what you're supposed to do in the boat is figure out how I'm going to get to point A to point B and figure out how to trim the mast, how to set the rudder, to be able to use the wind in order to get me to that direction. But you're never going to find the will of God if you're still anchored in the harbor. You've got to set sail. But once you set sail, then he will do the course correcting, and you will trim the mast, and you will play the game with the wind to get you to point A to point B. That's how you discern the will of God. Guys, ladies, pull up your anchor and set sail. Let's pray. Father, thank you, Lord, for what we can learn today about the young couple protecting the Messiah, Father. Grant us that wisdom to be able to cooperate with your will and how you want us to function in the navigating of our own lives. We want to be in the center of your will. We want to do what you've called us to do, Father. And I just pray, Father, you would guide and lead us as you always have. If there's anyone here, Father, who hasn't come to faith in your Son, may they do so today, placing their faith in Jesus, for he died for their sins, was buried, and rose on the third day to give everlasting life to anyone who believes. We pray now in Jesus' name, amen.
Hey everybody, I need your help, and I need your help in 3 different areas. First of all, I need your help on our channel. Our channel is working against an algorithm. And so we need you to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. And if you'll do that, that helps us get the message out to many people. It outdoes the algorithm that's working against us. So if you'll do those things, real simple, like, subscribe, hit the bell, it'll get our message out to as many people as possible. The second thing you could do to help us out is prayer. We get a lot of pushback online from not only human beings, but from the demonic realm as well. And so we need prayer. And so if you can pray for our ministry, that would greatly help us out. And third, it takes a lot of financial resources to put these programs on. And so we do a lot of filming, with a lot of editing, a lot of going on location. In fact, sometimes we film in Israel, and we film in Turkey and different places like that. And so it takes a lot of money to do these special programs that we put together. And so we need finances. And so if the Lord puts it on your heart to help us, that would be greatly appreciated by us in our ministry. So those are the 3 ways you can help us. Pray to the Lord how you could do that. Real easy. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, pray, and financially support us. God bless you. Thank you so much.